It's a Wednesday, live in Los Angeles. It's the Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. It is great to be here today. The Herd brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs via Sub Above. It's Wednesday. They'll be delivering lunch today. And Joy Taylor is joining me. Joy on a Wednesday. I tell you, I feel the best today I have felt in some time. Aided slightly by a Diet Red Bull. I'm not going to lie. I feel fantastic. How are you, Joy?
I'm great. I'm glad you're feeling better. I saved the Diet Red Bulls for, well, I guess we're not clubbing anymore, but if I know I have a long night ahead of me, I'm going to be out late, Diet Red Bull's the way to go.
Yeah, I don't club anymore. I go to a, a racket club, maybe. That's about it. Well, I want to start the show with this. We've all understood how pro sports works. There's always 4, 5, 6, 7 really well-run organizations in all leagues. Dodgers right now are really, really well-run. Yankees last 25 years mostly been well-run. Same with the Red Sox. You know who's well-run. And then you always have 6 or 7 franchises, and it's always kind of the same ones. It's always bad ownership, poorly run franchises in all the sports. And in the NFL, you don't have to be in the club forever. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in the club for a long time. Now they're out of it. Sometimes you get one great player that changes everything, often a great coach. Bruce Arians arrives, builds a good staff. Tom Brady, Buccaneers. We're in that bottom club. In the NFL, I would call it the clown club. And these are teams, and right now, currently in the NFL clown club, we have very predictable teams. The Jaguars, the Texans, the Bengals, Detroit, Washington football team, the Jets, the Browns. Now, the Browns would throw a pushback. Whoa. Oh, stop. You made the playoffs 1 year. You've been a tire fire for 25 years. The fact that you'd argue it is why you're in the clown club. Now, Washington, by the way, just made the playoffs. But again, you've been a mess for 15 years. You've let go of all sorts of good coaches and good players. So it's the NFL Clown Club. And there's another team that is showing signs of getting into the Clown Club. According to Les Bowen, he's a very good reporter, has been for years in the NFL, Philadelphia. He says, spoke with an NFL management source about the Carson Wentz melodrama. He said if Wentz doesn't want the Bears won't trade for him. Eventually, the Eagles will just take whatever the Colts are offering. Maybe a second, third-round pick for Carson Wentz. Also, the Eagles will have to draft a quarterback 6th overall. God. What a mess. They're all their own doing. There are 5 signs, if you're an NFL fan, that you are moving into the NFL Clown Club. Number 1, you start to have a lot of power struggles in the front office, a lot of ego. Number 2, generally over the last 7, 8 years, you fired a coach, Andy Reid, who you look back and go, he's a lot better than the current coach we have. Number 3, your quarterback situation, it just feels unsettled and handled poorly too often. Number 4 is there's an unhealthy level of arrogance despite brief success. You know, Saxonville. Everybody wrote a book for the Eagles after a Super Bowl. And number 5 is increasingly, you're not a great drafting team. So even though you're a bad team with good picks, you're missing a lot of picks. The Eagles, by the way, haven't drafted a Pro Bowler in 7 years except Carson Wentz. It looks like Philadelphia is about to enter the NFL Clown Club. The story this morning is, they're not going to get anything for Wentz, and they're going to have to draft another quarterback. I mean, they had Wentz. It was all their own doing. They had Wentz, they paid Wentz, and they butchered Wentz. And then last year, in what was one of the strangest things any of us had seen, even Chris Collinsworth, nicest guy in the world on the air, went ballistic. They had Jalen Hurts playing in a one-possession game, building confidence, division rival, playoffs on the line for Washington, and they pull him So a third-string guy can get reps. Jalen Hurts was on the sidelines, not happy. Of course he wasn't happy. Shouldn't have been happy. So I thought this morning, let's just make it official. Instead of just knocking on the door, let us open it, and the Philadelphia Eagles are officially, congratulations, in the NFL Clown Club with Washington, the Jets, the Lions, the Jags, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Houston Texans. You don't have to be in it forever. I mean, hey, Cleveland rattles off an 11-5. We may have to just pull them out. Joe Burrow looks very promising. You don't even have to be a playoff team. If you look like you're fairly well run, but those 5 signs in Philadelphia, front office, egos, looks like Andy Reid's a lot better than the 19-year-old you just hired. Quarterback situation feels a little poorly handled. You start lining those things up, you have an unhealthy level of arrogance for very little success, and your drafting sort of goes off the rails in recent years. Philadelphia, congratulations. Good luck working your way out of it. It's taken Cleveland a long time. They've been a 20-year charter member. I want to shift to this. So it's kind of embarrassing. I'm not a big fan of awards. I always said this about radio and television. I know who can play. I know who's good when the red light's on. I worked in local TV for 14 years. Every place I worked, there were 3 or 4 people. They're just great. They weren't always the people that won awards. You know who's good when the light goes on. You know who can't handle chaos. You know who's just naturally gifted. Reporters, editors, you know who they are. You don't have to have a plaque to tell you that. So LeBron James has only won 4 MVPs. He hasn't won one in 7 years. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing for the people who vote on it because he's easily the most valuable player in the league. But it's really a difficult word. What does valuable mean? Now, in American, statistically in America, men make more money than women in a household on average. I would argue women are more valuable in the household. If the guy leaves, pays a little child support alimony, the family structure can still be held together by the mother. But if the mom goes off the rails, the family implodes. Guy's got too much ego. Now, I'm not saying all the time. There are obviously exceptions. But I've always felt in my family it was mom and my sister and my wife. They're more valuable than I am. They keep it all together. And there's a big disparity in the NBA between talent and leadership. I think there's almost no super valuable players in the NBA. I think there are about 3, but I think there's tons of talent. I'll give you an example. The Lakers last night won without Anthony Davis. They're 5-1 this year without him. They're 11-4 in 2 years without him. They win just as much without him. He's not that valuable. The Pelicans were bad with him. They're bad without him. They're 12-15 this year. They didn't go overboard with him. They weren't good with him. They're not good without him. The Lakers win with him. The Lakers win without him. I'll give you another guy, Kevin Durant. The Nets have won 3 straight games without him. The Warriors won a title without him. The Warriors won 75% of their games when he missed it. He's talented. But what's value? Kawhi Leonard, the year the Raptors won the title, they were 17-5 when Kawhi Leonard didn't play. He was great. How valuable. They were winning before him, and they've won after him. Giannis. Giannis. He's back-to-back MVP. The Milwaukee Bucks are the worst team in the league when trailing after 3 quarters. They're 0-9. They're awful. Why? Because you don't want Giannis to have the ball with 4 minutes left in the game. He can't shoot. He's not. He's an incredibly gifted player. Valuable? They're on a 4-game losing streak. You know why they're struggling right now? He's playing. You know who's not? Drew Holiday's not playing. And they're losing. Drew Holiday is the glue to that team. Giannis is the most talented. There's 3 players in this league, to me, that should always be top 3 and most valuable player. LeBron James, embarrassing he hasn't won in 7 years. Chris Paul, everywhere he goes they win. Everywhere he leaves, now Oklahoma City's no good again. And Steph Curry. Steph Curry's always been the glue to the Warriors. He was the glue before KD got there. He was the glue when KD was there. And he's been the glue since he left. But you start looking around this league, Anthony Davis is great. Lakers are 11-4 when he doesn't play. And you could say, well, they wouldn't win a title without him. Right now, this team constituted as it is, I think they'd get to the title game. I'm not sure if they'd win it. They'd get there. This league, people confuse gifted and long and talented and spectacular with valuable. Valuable is you leave the team or you leave your family and it becomes an unglued, untethered mess. It's never been the case with AD. It's never been the case with KD. It's never been the case with Kawhi. It's always the case with Chris Paul. Have we talked about Blake Griffin? Have we talked about him one time, once, since Chris Paul left Blake Griffin? I mean, it's like milk carton. It's anonymous. He's like a prank phone call. It's anonymous. Where is Blake Griffin? No, they don't even talk about him with the Pistons. So it's interesting. Lakers, again, win last night without AD. Nobody's disputing his talent. Value? I'd argue it all day. Coming up next, there is something in sports we talk about from time to time. I call it the low sports self-esteem. The New York Mets have it. For years and years, the Clippers had it. The White Sox have had it. When you're kind of like the second banana in a city, you often have it. Like the Mets always reach, always spend too much because they're the little brother in a city. By the way, teams in a division with the Patriots for years, they would reach and overpay for pass rushers and overdraft a quarterback. And I'm not picking on the Browns, but there was a window to trade OBJ, and a report now, they got to move him, but it's too late. There's nothing to get for him now. And we'll talk about that coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hi, I'm Hillary Clinton. I started my podcast, You and Me Both, because I thought we could all use a little company getting through some dark times. Now we're turning a new page as a country. So I'm talking to smart people with big ideas about topics like how to repair the damage of the last 4 years. And we'll also cover the fun stuff, like what's the difference between real life politics and what you see on TV shows. You can listen to You and Me Both on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes driving's good. Weather's good, radio songs on, everything's perfect. Sometimes it's not so good, like right now. Prayers and thoughts to the people in Texas. Brutal weather right now. Go get Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades. Last 2 times longer than other blades. So there's a story out today. The salary cap, because of COVID, is going to drop this year. It's not going up, which means it's going to make for some interesting conversations in NFL front offices. You're going to have to get rid of some expensive good players. The story today is Cleveland's going to probably have to move Odell Beckham. This is something we've been on for 2 years. We've been saying this for 2 years. He's brittle, he's expensive, he's a star, he doesn't fit in Cleveland, and Baker Mayfield was clearly, data proves it, no debate, better without him. This goes to a root argument that people struggle with. The idea that more talent is always better for football teams is not true. There are individual talents with young quarterbacks where they sometimes feel pressured to throw the ball to them. We've been on this for 2 years. Look at the data, move Odell. He's brittle, he'll get hurt again. Move him. They didn't. Now they're stuck because he's missed 25 games over the past 4 years. Why would you want him? Who wants a brittle, expensive wide receiver when college football, once again this year, is going to hand the NFL 25 to 28 receivers in the draft? There'll also be several undrafted wide receivers that'll make NFL teams. And receivers out of college are starring earlier in the NFL. They're making first and second year impacts. But this is the reality with Cleveland, which has always struggled with low sports self-esteem. They care deeply about what you think of them and what the media thinks of them. If I do any Cleveland rant, it always gets huge hits. Why? Because they care. I can rip successful sports teams. Nobody cares. Inner scoreboard, outer scoreboard. A lot of guys say they're confident. Outer scoreboard, they're very insecure. Inner scoreboard people don't have to tell you how great they are. Brown fans are paralyzed by what people think, so they didn't want to move off Odell Beckham because they wanted to prove to everybody stars can work in Cleveland. We can bring stars. They can work because everybody said he's not going to work there. He's a London guy. He's a Paris guy. He's a New York guy. He's a Hollywood guy. He's got houses in New York and Hollywood. He didn't want to be in Cleveland, and he didn't. But Cleveland was paralyzed by it. We're going to prove that Odell Beckham can work in Cleveland. Now he's brittle and expensive, and you're not going to get much for him. You get something for him, but you could have gotten so much more. And the signs were obvious. Like last year, it's no longer disputable. Of the 9 receivers, the 9 top receivers Baker Mayfield targeted last year, Odell Beckham was last in passer rating and completion percentage from Baker. That means Baker's completion percentage was lower throwing to Odell than any other player, and his passer rating was lower than throwing to any other player. It's not even disputable now. He forces the ball to Odell Beckham. But this is why it's really important in the NFL to not worry about what other people think of you. This is something we've been banging on for 2 years. Odell wasn't a great fit. Baker was forcing the ball to him, a little bit like Dak and Dez. Remember the Cowboys moved off him? Dak felt like he had to get the ball to Dez, and Dak's numbers were fine without Dez once he got Amari Cooper. So the story today, the Browns will have to move Odell. I don't think they'll get nearly the haul they would have 2 years ago. If you remember, back in, it was 2019 actually, I think he played 15 or 16 games, had 1,000 yards. That was the time to move him. But they wanted to prove stars work in Cleveland. We're going to prove. Don't worry about what people think. Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. History of injuries. That was the day you moved him. Look at the data, move him. You could have gotten a first-round pick for him. You'd be out of your mind to get a first-round pickup for Odell Beckham now. You'd be out of your mind. Expensive and hurt all the time. Joy with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, the Broncos have been struggling to find their next franchise quarterback ever since Peyton Manning retired, but they're ready to throw their hat in the ring for Deshaun Watson. The Broncos will reportedly pursue a trade for Deshaun if the Texans make him available this offseason. The story's a little strange because the Texans have been pretty upfront about the idea that they are not trading Deshaun Watson,
Right.
which would tend to make you believe that they're waiting for someone to give them a ridiculous haul to then consider it.
Right.
So the idea that the Broncos are going to wait until the Texans make him available, it seems like it'd be a little late in the game if that's how you're handling it. They could offer the Texans Drew Lock, and they have the 9th pick in the draft. They could put together a pretty nice package for the Texans. Could they compete with someone like the Jets? I don't know, but it seems like if the Broncos really want Deshaun Watson, they're going to have to be aggressive as opposed to react.
I think, Joy, this is the 3rd or 4th team. We saw the Carolina story a couple days ago. There's a bidding war for Deshaun Watson. I'm not, because he came off his best season. Now, it's interesting. He's been hurt before, too. Is this the most valuable Deshaun will ever be in this moment? Not saying he wouldn't be valuable in 3 years, but one more injury to him, and he's a playmaker. He moves. One more injury, and a lot of teams will just move to another young quarterback. I could make the argument, Deshaun off his best year, he has been healthy. This is the moment to, if you're going to move him, this is the year. Now, you don't want to move him ideally, but Joy, Denver now, this is the 3rd team publicly we've heard about. You got a bidding war. You could get now 4 first-round picks, a bridge quarterback, second-round picks. You know, it's the old saying, strike when the iron is hot. This is a bad relationship. This may be the moment that you can get the most ever for Deshaun, and you take a terrible situation and then make it palatable.
Well, it makes sense that the Texans are saying that they're not going to make him available because then that's going to make teams be more aggressive and offer more to get him. So obviously, if the Texans are like, yeah, we're trading him, they lose leverage in that spot. It's similar to the situation with Odell. I agree with you. One more injury and it changes everything. I don't think that he is on the Texans roster the start of the season,
Neither do
but
I.
this is the right strategy for the Texans right now.
Yeah.
So J.J. Watt has already gotten a lot of interest since his release from the Texans. His former teammate DeAndre Hopkins appears to be enjoying life away from Houston and is now trying to convince Watt to join him in Arizona. He posted a picture of the two of them on Instagram with the caption, "Let's finish what we started." Great graphic work, by the way, because J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins in Cardinals jerseys. So it really, like, I had to do a double take. At first, I was like, "What is happening?" Their artists are amazing. Juju Smith-Schuster also made a case to the Steelers, commenting on that post. "Come play with your brothers, LOL." And J.J. Watt just tweeted a few minutes ago, "Free agency is wild." So the story and all the news surrounding J.J. Watt is it's more fun, obviously, because he's a free agent and Juju can do that and DeAndre Hopkins can do that. It's not the stressful situation that's going on with Deshaun Watson. But I'm really excited to find out where he ends up.
So, listen, he's older, he's been dinged up, and he's expensive. But again, there's a handful of really good teams, Baltimore, Green Bay, where, Joy, it feels like they're kind of a pass rusher away from, like, taking another step. And I go back to something with Green Bay. All of Green Bay's rivals have been super aggressive. Green Bay has been, and not a shot, it's just the way they do business. This would be symbolic to me if Green Bay went out and overspent a little. It feels like it's a moment in time. It's the crowded bar theory. Let's create a little juice inside the Packer organization. Just a little juice now. Let's, for the first time in your life, dip into our 401k and get a little uncomfortable, overspend for vacation. It feels like a moment. Don't do that a lot. Doesn't change your culture in Green Bay. I mean, you can be somebody that's really smart with your money and overspend on a vacation. It's okay to do that. And I think Green Bay, this is the moment in time to go for it.
We talk about it all the time, that aggressive wins in sports. You're seeing that happen. Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year are the best example of that. They were not in the playoffs last year, and they just won the Super Bowl. Obviously, Tom Brady being the biggest factor there, but they've made a lot of other aggressive moves, and all of those moves contributed, not only throughout the regular season, but especially in the Super Bowl. So I totally agree with you. Green Bay is the move that they could do.
Yep.
So the Nets were without Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving last night, and it looked like they were headed towards a blowout on the Suns. They were down 75-54 at halftime, trailed by as many as 24 points in the game. But James Harden scored 38, including a huge three-pointer to secure the lead with 30 seconds remaining. Brooklyn was also able to slow down the Suns' offense, pulling them to this 49-second half.
Yep.
120 wins. I thought this was a very significant game for the Nets. Being without KD and Kyrie, it was looking bleak. They kicked up the defense in the second half, and everyone contributed. Joe Harris at 22 points, 4 rebounds. Jeff Green at 18 points, 8 rebounds. And the Suns are the hottest team in the league right now. Like, they've been playing unbelievable basketball. Chris Paul at 29 points, Devin Booker at 22 points. This wasn't like they're blowing out the Suns of 3 years ago. This was a really good win for the Nets.
Yeah, I think that I didn't watch it. Devin Booker apparently struggled a little bit down the stretch, and that opened the door for the Nets and James Harden to pull it out. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Well, he's a part of a Fox Sports family now. He played in the NFL for 6 years. He's done college and pro. He's got a real sense of college personnel and some NFL situations. He's up formerly in Seattle. It's Brock Heward. He's joining us now, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Let me start with this. You were always a team guy. Russell Wilson has a little bit your personality where it's about, you say the right stuff. Go Hawks. You don't right. Are you surprised how aggressive that Russell Wilson was in the last week, calling out the O-line, some personnel situations? Were you surprised?
Yes. Now, to be fair, Colin, I never said go Huskies or go Hawks. That's a Russell. But to your point, I mean, for 9 years, he's been the ultimate pro. He's never flinched, never. And even my buddy Peyton, remember years ago against the Chargers, that playoff loss, he flinched post-game, let some of his frustration with the O-line and the plan and the blocking. And, obviously Aaron Rodgers, some of his peers will flinch a little bit. Russell never has done that in season. Has taken every arrow. And you're right. This is off brand. You know, he's got a brand. I don't know if you know this or not, Colin, but he's got a clothing line called the Good Man brand. And this is more of the I'm agitated man brand. And it's a sense of urgency. You know, that's what his camp and I think he'll tell you is, hey man, time is now. Like I'm 9 years into this thing, and I'm at the, you know, maybe the middle part of my career, and I probably will never run like I used to run. I sat up in the Super Bowl, and it had to be fascinating for him sitting there with the commissioner. On one side, he's watching Mahomes going, yeah, I've played the game like that. I was that guy, you know, my first 3 years, 4 years. And then on the other end, he looks at Tom Brady and says, but that's where I want to be. That's who I'm going to be. I want to play till I'm 45. And it had to be fascinating, and I don't think it was coincidental coming off that Super Bowl that he does his media blitz and talks to people and says, we got to get right. We got to get right up front. I got to get more help. And from his perspective, it's urgency. From the fans' perspective, Colin, this is fascinating. I put out a little Twitter poll last night to the Seattle fans, just kind of engaging them. What do you think? How would you grade Russell's performance here? And the majority said out of character and petty, that this is just not who he's been. So, yeah, it'll be a fascinating exchange here in the weeks and months ahead, I think, with Pete Carroll, with John Schneider, and then ultimately with his teammates in his O-line when they walk back in the room.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Pete now has, next to Belichick, probably the most personnel power in the league as a head coach. Andy Reid doesn't have it. Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis makes the calls in New Orleans. And I have said, since they won a Super Bowl, they've had one playoff win in 6 years of note. I do feel at times they're kind of making it up as they go. I think I said this yesterday. Pete Carroll is Doc Rivers. He's likable. He's got a presence. He's got a title. We're reluctant to push back, but I do feel Pete is a little quirky, has a little too much current power, and I do feel he gets a little bit of a pass in the Northwest. Do you?
Yeah, I heard your comments earlier this week, Colin, and I thought a lot of those were pretty fair. And one of them that was really astute, and obviously you're pretty connected with some people there as well, was the influence that Paul Allen had. I think many times people looked at Paul Allen and said, billionaire, enigmatic, eccentric, not really involved, and that couldn't have been further from the truth. You know, John Schneider had to write a report after every game detailing every single play. What happened on that play, coaching personnel, that's the GM, John Schneider, and he gave that report to Paul Allen. Paul Allen brought consultants in, you know, that weren't brought in by Pete Carroll, consultants in to just kind of, hey, let's have some checks and balances. Let's ask some questions. An inquisitive, curious guy, Paul Allen, a tremendous force there for many, many years. And I think his horsepower, his curiosity, his brain power, and you alluded to that it's no longer there. And that's not a slight on Jody Allen, his sister, who's taken over. By all accounts, people there think the world of her, and she's done a fine job. But Paul was different. Paul was curious. Paul was really involved. And I think that's a fair question. You know, who is challenging Pete? Pete loves to compete, right? Wrote a book about it. Win forever, compete every day. Who's competing with Pete? Who's pushing Pete? I think Colin, that is a legitimate question and a very legitimate point.
You know, we were talking this morning. I saw this morning, Brock, fascinating that the Niners. We've seen whenever there's smoke, there's fire. There's like 6 stories they're not happy with Garoppolo, and it's really fascinating, Brock. So here's the facts: that he's won 75% of his starts. He has a quarterback rating of 99. San Francisco, with a coach we love, stinks when he doesn't play. Yet he has been hurt in week 2 in 2016, in week 3 in 2018, in week 2 in 2020. So what that tells me, he comes out of camp. His body cannot withstand an NFL beat. It's different if you gave me 14 weeks a year, and then at the end of the year, he is in trouble by September. I do get this. By the way, we've heard Kirk Cousins to San Francisco. Kirk's never missed a start. What would you do if you ran the Niners today? You got the 12th pick. There's quarterbacks on the market. I look at this morning and I think they just don't want to see that. They don't trust his body. I think they like him. They don't trust his body. What would you do in San Francisco?
Well, 12's tough because everybody that I really like is not going to be there at 12. And I don't think if Mac Jones is sitting there at 12, I've seen some of that speculation. And a very accurate passer, and had a tremendous productive run at Alabama and a great Senior Bowl. But I think there's going to be better players, better suited for their program long term than Mac Jones at number 12. So I would exhaust every opportunity. I would turn over every stone. John Lynch and Shanahan are innovative. They're out front. They are proactive. They don't tend to be reactive, and it's why I think they built a tremendous roster that was a deep post away from Garoppolo hitting and winning that Super Bowl against the Chiefs if he could hit that thing. And people all the time, Colin, I can speak firsthand. Okay, I was hurt all through my pro career. I never made it, never established myself. I was never reliable. I was never available. But beyond that, and I think the question here is, can you protect yourself? It's not even his frame and his body. He's a well-built guy. He's the best-looking quarterback in the league. Sorry, Brady. I mean, he's a hottie. And he's got a good body, but it's about protecting himself, understanding how to. And I watched Peyton Manning play games, Colin, where he didn't get hits. You were just talking about Aaron Rodgers, okay, playing games where you don't get hits, where you protect yourself. And that's a skill. That's an experience. That's an ability. And, yeah, I think the brass there is concerned that A, he's always been hurt, as you said, and B, he doesn't really understand how to protect himself to do it over the long term, and thus they will turn over every stone via the draft, via free agency, via trade, but they'll probably do it sneakily. They'll probably not let you know, and they'll probably get done, and you'll say on your show, wow, you enjoy. What a smart move. San Francisco's full of smart people that make smart moves and aggressive moves.
Here's a contrarian take that Deshaun Watson's obviously a terrific player, but he's had injuries. He just had his best year. Yeah. One more injury, and a lot of teams would say, we'll just go get a new guy. I know you'd love to keep him, but you couldn't win with him. And right now it appears there's 4 to 5 teams in a bidding war potentially for him. Could I make the argument that this is actually the rare moment that you could get the most for Deshaun in this moment? And he doesn't want to play with you. He doesn't like the infrastructure. And, I mean, you know it. If the quarterback doesn't want to be there, it's going to seep. Yeah. It'll just be, it'll be just bad medicine for the organization. My argument is, if you had to trade him, this is the moment in time to do it.
Oh, I don't think that's terribly contrarian at all. And most importantly is what you said. He's made that statement. He's made that conviction. He's the one, and he's smart enough, and he's surrounded by really bright people as well that told him, hey, Deshaun, if you go down this road, you got to understand the heat is coming. The attacks are going to be coming. Okay, the PR is not going to go your way. You're beloved now. The people love you. The mayor wants you there. You got to understand in time that will turn, and are you willing to play in that heat? And his definitive answer has been, yes, I am. So I don't think it's terribly contrarian, everything you just laid out. That if indeed, and by the way, you talk to people in Houston, it's not just trading Deshaun. How else can we free up some space? You're going to take Deshaun and this bad contract. You're going to take Deshaun and, give us some more freedom and capital through picks and some cap flexibility over the long term. So most importantly, because he has said very clearly, I'm done. I don't want to be here. I'm done with the owner. I'm done with the team. I'm out. He has made that case. And yeah, to the rest of your points, I think they all make sense.
By the way, you're working with other NFL stars currently right now. Brock, you are joining us to help families in need during COVID. It's called, I think it's fillthestadium.com. Tell me what that is.
Well, thanks, Colin. And by the way, thanks to the great people who took care of you and got you back on the air, because many of us were worried about you and praying for you. So I'm so glad that you went through, a tough time and in a real scary circumstance. So I'm glad that you were back on the air. And there's a lot of folks around the world, around the globe, especially the third world, Colin, that are hurting really badly through this pandemic. Not just in America, man. The poverty and the need is real. Yeah, there's about 50 of us, current pros, former pros, that have joined together with compassion. And just go to fillthestadium.com. fillthestadium.com. You can see the unbelievable team that wants to fill an NFL stadium in need. About 70,000 kids around the globe need sponsorships. We're doing our part. The folks at Fox, they reached out to you in your moment of hurt, Colin, and I felt the same thing. Our partners at Fox, our bosses at Fox have been incredible, supportive in this cause and this initiative, and really thankful. Thanks for bringing it up, and thanks that you're well and getting well, and back on the air, bud.
Brock, I love having you as a teammate. You're one of the really smart, thoughtful guys in our business, and we will talk soon, my friend.
Thank you, Colin. Be well.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, boy, there's just all this transitional stuff in the NFL I just can't get enough of. I just love it. Carson Wentz, according to stories this morning, he's getting traded the next couple of days. By the way, I'm going to suggest something. I'm confused on what tampering is. So I'm going to suggest something next. Don't go anywhere, it's the Herd.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, three-time Pro Bowler LeVar Arrington, and I couldn't be more excited to announce a new podcast called Up On Game. What is Up On Game, you ask? Along with my fellow Pro Bowler, the man, long hair, Mr. Prince Charming himself, TJ Hushmanzada, and Stretch Armstrong, Super Bowl champion. Yep, that's right. Plexico Burris. Did you hear that? LeVar Arrington, TJ Hushmanzada, Plexico Burris, all on one show? Sheesh. You can only name a show with that type of talent on it. Up On Game. We're going to be sharing our real-life experiences, our real-life stories, people, loaded with teachable moments. That's the key. This show will break the mold and create a new way of thinking about athletes and sports topics. Listen to Up On Game with me, LeVar Arrington, TJ Hushmanzada, and Plexico Burris on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from. Tune in, people!
Do you suffer from lead foot? Do goosebumps appear for no reason? Stop living with uninspired performance. Visit mbusa.com/AMG, Mercedes AMG driving performance. So, this is interesting. You know I like Carson Wentz. I'm a big fan of Carson Wentz. He went off the rails. I don't think it's all his fault. I think it's been mishandled. I think he's a huge talent. He's got to get it right. He needs protection. He needs help. He needs the right coach and organization. But I'm a big fan of Carson Wentz. I want to see him succeed. I also love the way the Colts and general manager Chris Ballard, a friend of mine, I like how they do business. They make trades with discretion. They don't overspend. They never panic. They're very measured. I think they're a quarterback away. So I am rooting for Carson Wentz. I think it would be great for him to go to the Colts. It would make me happy. I think it's better for you, the fans, when really good quarterback talents end up on really well-run teams. Nobody wants to watch bad football. Philadelphia last couple of years has been bad football. So the premise I'll start with is I'd like to see him end up. I think it's perfect. San Francisco or the Colts, but really the Colts. And according to reports, the Bears and the Colts are the two teams making offers to the Eagles to get him. So it's down to the Bears and Colts. But I read this morning from Les Bowen, a reporter in Philadelphia. If Wentz doesn't want the Bears are not going to trade for him. And that means the Eagles will just take whatever the Colts are offering. So that's obviously good for Wentz and the Colts, meaning they don't have to sabotage the franchise and give up 6 picks to get him. So Carson would go to the Colts, and they wouldn't have to give up a ton of draft capital to get him. So the key is Carson Wentz needs to let the Bears know I'm not interested. And I have a question this morning. You can't, tampering is, what's tampering and what's not tampering? So I'm going to ask a question. My staff will give me the answer. Is it tampering for the Colts to somehow communicate with Carson Wentz and tell him, turn down the Bears? That is tampering. Okay, you can't do that. Is it tampering for the Colts to communicate over a cup of coffee with Wentz's agent and let the agent know if he turns down the Bears, we can get him for almost nothing? That's tampering. Is it tampering for me to do a rant telling Carson Wentz, don't go to the Bears, and then the Colts take the rant and send it to Carson Wentz? That's tampering. is it tampering if I just looked at the camera and told Carson Wentz, tell the Bears you don't want to go, we have this rant, and then we send it out digitally and tag Carson Wentz so he sees it? I can do that. All right, so take this and send it to Carson Wentz. That officially is not tampering. For the record, let me go back to the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. This is really interesting. So according to this is the second report we've seen on this. The Niners want to get out of the Jimmy Garoppolo business. And as I said to Brock Heward, it's not just that Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, it's when he gets hurt. He gets hurt in week 2 and 3, meaning his body's just not built for this. The dilemma the Niners are in with Garoppolo is, first of all, he's won 75% of his starts. Even with Kyle Shanahan, you stink without him. He got to a Super Bowl, and his quarterback rating is 90. So he's good. Despite what everybody wants to tell you, he's good. Great? I don't know. He's good. Here's the Niners' dilemma. The people available on the market, Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold, Marcus Mariota, and to a lesser degree Deshaun Watson, also have an injury history. Also could be best described as, at times, reckless. So this explains why Kirk Cousins' name keeps coming up for San Francisco. You see him and I see him as limited, but Kirk Cousins has never missed a start. And the NFL's got a long line of really talented quarterbacks who just couldn't stay healthy. Andrew Luck, RG3, Sam Bradford, Tony Romo, Marcus Mariota, Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's a real interesting dilemma. It's not that he just gets hurt. He's hurt by week 2. His body cannot sustain even early September pounding in the NFL. He is hurt throughout seasons. And San Francisco, according to reports, is going to move off him. But where are they going to go? Darnold's hurt and reckless. Wentz can be hurt and reckless. Mariota's reckless and hurt. Deshaun Watson's had 2 injuries. Hour 2.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go. It is hour 2, brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs. Be a sub above, live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on Fox Sports Radio. We are on FS1. One of my favorite people in the world, Dave Wannstedt. No Dolphin coach has lasted 4 years since he was there. Got him to the playoffs. Dave Wannstedt joining us in about 5 minutes. And Joy Taylor is joining me this morning. Joy, how are you? I think we lost. I cannot hear Joy for some reason on her Skype. So we'll get that figured out as soon as we possibly can. So here is a story this morning. And we all know this. NBA's always been very much transactional. We talk about this all the time. NFL never was. It was about regular season. Playoffs were great, and then occasionally you'd have trades. Now the NFL is a very transactional league, especially quarterbacks. So here's the latest. Mike Lombardi, longtime Bill Belichick assistant, Cleveland Browns GM, was on the Pat McAfee show and basically said, he came out and he said, the Denver Broncos were very close to making a trade and moving off of Drew Lock, which they need to. He's the only quarterback in the league. Since he's entered the league, he's the only quarterback completing less than 60% of his throws. Little too cool for me, little too casual, too many interceptions. He ain't it, as the kids say. We got 18 starts here. He's got 59% completion percentage, 79 passer rating, 23 TDs, 18 picks. He's not it. Too casual. Just doesn't play with enough urgency. Well, he played AAU basketball. He's a little too cool for the room. And that's, cool guys don't win in this league. Baker tries to be too cool. Johnny Manziel tried to be too cool. Cam Newton sometimes was more worried about being cool. Don't be cool. Be urgent. Be kind of a dork. Like every play matters. Drew Lock doesn't play with that kind of urgency. Lets too many balls go that you just wouldn't throw in high school. It's just not good enough throw. So he's done. But it's now official. Denver is looking for a quarterback now. So I'm not going to count the Niners, Atlanta, or Minnesota. All of them could draft a quarterback. I'm not going to count them. Here's the current teams that need a quarterback, and we all know. Jets, Jags, Carolina, Denver, New England, Washington, Chicago, Indy, and New Orleans. That's 9. It's almost a third of the league. What's really happening in the NFL right now, it used to be when you were a quarterback. You came into the league and you got one shot. Drew Brees was the exception. If you got hurt or you didn't work, it was over. It's all done now. You do get a second chance now. Carson Wentz is going to get one. Sam Darnold's going to get one. I think Jameis Winston's going to get one. Cam Newton got one. Marcus Mariota, I think, is going to get one. Ryan Tannehill got one. So why is that happening now? Why do quarterbacks get a second chance? There's two things. A, it's just a more transactional league. There's more trades made all the time. And quarterbacks, like everybody else, can be moved. Number two is bigger business than ever, more money than ever. GMs and coaches are just less patient. So they're just going to move off you. It doesn't mean the league is moving off you. It means your team is more willing quickly to move off you. And with this influx of terrific young college quarterbacks ready to play, teams roll the dice more. They're willing to let Joe Burrow walked in with a bad O-line and a bad team. And we knew by the second week at halftime, dude can play. Drew Lock thought he was interesting for about 5 or 6 or 7 starts. Now we got 18. Dude can't play in this league. He won't get a second shot. So, there's an old rule in the NFL. I've said this multiple times. You can't have the 4th best quarterback in a division. If you do, you got to move off it. So, in the AFC West, Mahomes is number 1, Herbert's number 2, Derek Carr's number 3. Drew Lock is not 4. Marcus Mariota, the backup to Carr, is better than Drew Lock. So Drew Lock is the 5th best quarterback in his division. It doesn't work that way. You got to move off it. It's nothing against the kid, but 18 starts. He's too casual, too many picks. He's just not buttoned up. Got to move off him. Want to bring in one of my friends, former Bear coach, Dolphin coach, Pitt coach, Cowboys, Super Bowls, national championships with Jimmy Johnson. Dave Wannstedt, Fox Sports NFL analyst, now is joining us live. So, it's interesting with Carson Wentz. I think we both admit, Dave, he's really talented. Nobody would dispute that. He's really, really talented. He's also expensive. But if you start looking at the teams, Chicago's interested, the Colts are interested. Give me your thought, if you had some personnel control in this league, where do you stand today on Carson Wentz?
I think he's a talented guy. I think he needs to be surrounded by a lot of strong leadership. And that's a problem that I see having in Chicago, to be quite honest with you. Their defense got leaders, but offensively right now, they're obviously a little bit upside down. And, and Bruce Arians, I know, is coming on your show later on, Carson, and I will tell you this because I remember hearing Bruce talk about this, and it really made sense. He was talking about, he says, some of these quarterbacks have never been under center before. And then he elaborated more and made this point. Here's what I'm talking about Carson Wentz. A quarterback, one guy talks in the huddle, the quarterback. The quarterback's got to be able to get everybody's attention. When New England had the big comeback and they beat when they came back and beat Atlanta in Houston, that Super Bowl.
Did we lose him? There we go. We'll try to get Dave Wannstedt again. He is sitting in Naples, Florida right now, and I'm looking up at the video screen, and he looks to be a little fuzzy. He was right in the Dave's one of the great storytellers, and he was right in the middle of a really good story. so I don't want to disrupt his story. We do have Bruce Arians on next hour. What is interesting with Carson Wentz, I'm not sure if Dave was going to elaborate, is that he comes from a small college, and he goes to Philadelphia, and he had a lot of really good leaders around him. Well, Frank Reich has now taken a head coaching job. So let's go back to Dave Wannstedt. Finish your story on Carson Wentz and Bruce Arians.
Well, the whole story that Bruce was talking about was quarterbacks in his mind are the only ones speaking in the huddle. And he was talking about the young kids coming out of college nowadays that they take the snap and they get the play from the sideline and they go up the line of scrimmage and yell some numbers out and run the play. Well, a problem with Carson Wentz that I'm told, talking to a lot of people, is his leadership ability. That he lost the team. He lost the offense. And right now, you bring a quarterback like Carson Wentz in, and what Tom Brady did in that Super Bowl, Deion Lewis told us in our postgame show, Tom Brady came into that huddle and told everybody to do their damn jobs, and he said, I'll tell you what, you can count on me doing my job. Dan Marino's last year at Miami, we were down there, Dan came into the huddle, and he was at the end. And he came in, they were down one time, and he looked around the huddle and he said, who wants to score a touchdown? I mean, there's a presence and a communication with the quarterback in a huddle when the game's on the line that's invaluable. And I'm not hearing that about Carson Wentz. And that, to me, was a little bit of the problem, for whatever reason, with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think that's an issue, and I think he's got to go to the right place. And let me tell you about Chicago right now. Chicago is a little bit unraveled as a football team. Everybody can take their shots. But Chicago's a tough-minded, proud city. And when anybody comes out and insinuates that they don't want to be part of it, I'll tell you what, then don't be part of it. Because Chicago doesn't mind winning a football game 10-7. Okay? They do not need 35 points to be happy in Chicago. I lived it. Okay? I lived it. So don't, you want to be part of it, come on, roll your sleeves up and get ready for it. But if you don't, then go somewhere else. And I think that's the approach. I talked to someone this morning. That's pretty much where the Bears are at. We made our offer, and the Bears are exploring other quarterbacks. They're talking around the league without getting into a lot of specifics, and they're ready to go another direction other than Carson Wentz, as much as they'd like to have him.
That's really good.
They've about had it.
Yeah, no, this is why we bring you on. You got all connections throughout the league. So here's interesting with Jimmy Garoppolo. I looked at this morning. There's another story San Francisco's done with him. Dave, we know that when he plays, he wins. We know that. We've seen it. Even Kyle Shanahan struggles without him. Here's an issue, though, and I want you to go back to your career. The 3 times he's been hurt in week 2, and week 3. That tells me, Dave, he's brittle. He comes out of a camp. By early September, he's banged up. It's not like he gave me 15 great weeks. Mahomes had this where he got hurt at the end of the year and all those reps and all those snaps and all those hits. I understand players at the end of the year getting banged up. What would you do with Garoppolo? Clearly he's successful. Dave, I don't think he can stay healthy. His body's telling me it can't.
Yeah, some quarterbacks and running backs, I think this is in every position. I mean, Emmitt Smith, and I played with Tony Dorsett, and Emmitt Smith, I was there coaching him at Dallas. Some running backs and quarterbacks in every position just find a way not to get hit in the fashion that they're going to kind of stay healthy. And he doesn't protect himself very well, in my opinion. You can't blame it on the offensive style because they run a quarterback-friendly offense, okay? And so he's not dropping back and throwing it 50 times a game. We all know that. So to me, we can't do anything more to protect you. We got the offensive line. We got play action passes. We're moving you. We're doing everything we can. That is a concern. Yeah. No question about it. I would be concerned about it. And I don't think San Francisco is going to do anything until they can get somebody better. If they can get somebody better, they know they can win with Garoppolo. They know they can win with them. And that's a lot. A lot of these teams cannot say that.
Yeah. So J.J. Watt's on the market. Listen,
I love it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think he fits Green Bay, and I've said this before. Green Bay, it's almost symbolic. Everybody in the NFC is aggressive, and Green Bay sits back there. They win a bunch of games, and they have kind of a style, and they don't go big after free agents. And sometimes it doesn't mean you're changing your culture, Dave. Sometimes you got to go for it. It sends a message in the room that we're going to be aggressive. I think it elevates players' confidence. I think Green Bay needs to go after J.J. Watt, but he's not cheap. He's been around a while. He's had injuries. Your thoughts on him as a player and what would he mean? Where would it fit for you?
Well, I love J.J. Watt. And let me say this. My first reaction is not Green Bay. As much as every team could use him, they're 2 tackles. When they were playing their best defense of the year at the end of the year, it was Clark and it was Gary were the 2 guys, in my opinion, that were playing at a high level, They're two inside guys, and they were making a difference. So I would not even consider Green Bay if I was with the Packers. I like my young guys. The team I would look, you look at the bottom five teams on defense, and he's a 4-3 guy. I would love to see, being a Pittsburgh guy, I would love to see the love story of him going back and playing with his two brothers in Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh's a 3-4 team, and he's got to be on the edge of the guard or on the edge of the tackle outside, rushing off the edge. That's what the guy does best. He's not in there going to get double teamed and use him up as a blocker. So I think you got to look at a 4-3 team. And the team that I looked at, I was looking at that this morning, and the Tennessee Titans are a 4-3 team. They were a bottom five defense. They have a chance to make a run at the big dance. If I was J.J. Watt, I would want to go to a successful team, a team that's going to play a 4-3, and give me a chance. Hey, I don't have many years left. Give me a chance to do what I can do best. Go to one of those 4-3 teams that are going to win. I say Tennessee Titans.
Listen, if you were coaching Houston, and Deshaun Watson would be happier than he is now, but if a quarterback's unhappy and he's a very verbal person, it just seeps through the entire organization. Could I make the argument he just came off his best year? You got 4 to 5 teams willing to have a bidding war for him. You've got a high draft pick, and there's 4 or 5 good college quarterbacks. That maybe now he's been injured before. He wasn't injured this year. Could I make the argument, Dave? Listen, you don't want to trade him. There's a bidding war for a healthy star quarterback. You may get more picks than you've ever imagined off him right now.
Yeah, I mean, in the state of their team right now, I don't think that'll happen, but I would not be shocked. I mean, there was talk earlier about this week about Dallas, about Jerry signing Dak and then trading him, to Houston for a bunch of picks. And Deshaun Watson going there. If I'm Deshaun Watson, San Francisco, I know they would love to have him because they're the style of offense. When he plays his best, early in the year, he was just going to be a pass. And then when he uses his legs and he's not afraid to run some, boy, the guy is better and as good as anybody in the league. If I'm him, I'm looking at one of those type of teams where I can obviously excel at my skills. But, boy, Houston's a tough one. I mean, the head coach is not even picking the assistant coaches here. I'm still trying to figure this one out. The general manager, I mean, you go into the first staff meeting and you're introducing everybody around the room. I was talking to a guy the other day. I said, what happens when somebody, little things like this, Colin, that people don't understand. If you're in an NFL practice and somebody jumps off sides, okay, every coach better be reacting the same way. And I've seen it where a guy jumps offside. One coach wants to run everybody in a lap. The other coach wants to do 10 push-ups. The other coach wants to run the play 5 times in a row. These little things. The point that I'm making is Houston right now, it's really, I don't know how they're going to pull this thing together fast enough. Deshaun Watson is in a very difficult situation. Very difficult situation, and I could go on for this for hours. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't have enough time.
Finally, there's always been this sense, Dave, that you draft a quarterback and then you develop him and then you win with him.
Yep.
But now we've seen Brady acquired and you win a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning acquired by Denver, win a Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo acquired, get to a Super Bowl. Tannehill acquired, good playoff run. Kirk Cousins acquired, win a bunch of games. In today's NFL, Dave, if you could acquire or draft, it feels like we're getting into a spot now where it's becoming more transactional, Dave, and teams don't want to sit around and develop a lot of players.
Money. Look at the Jared Goffs. Look at the Carson Wentz. You're taking these young players in a year or two. They've given them a bunch of money. And the guys have disappointed you. So everyone's looking for the finished product or someone with maybe some upside that's cheap. Mitch Trubisky. Go. Your guy, Mitch Trubisky. I can't wait to see where the Bears end up signing and see if the guy can play better than Mitch can. I mean, Mitch Trubisky is Ryan Tannehill, but he's better than Tannehill was then. So he's going to end up on his feet and get a chance. But to go back to the main point is that no one wants it. In my opinion, no one wants to get burned and take this money away from the owner and take it away from your cap numbers and the kid be unsuccessful. Everyone's looking for the guy that has proven it already. And I'm just surprised that some of these guys are available. I mean, back in the day, there was no movement. If I could have got a quarterback, I would have. I mean, God, I might still be coaching.
I'm not joking. You'd be in Miami still.
I'd be in Miami still.
Yeah. All right. You look healthy and happy down there. Are you going to golf today or anything?
No, I played yesterday. You know where my good friend Tony Wise is down here, and we're going over to see Jimmy tomorrow. I'm driving over to the Keys. My wife and I got to say hello to Joy. Last time I did your show, I did not mention Joy, and when I hung up, my wife screamed at me, You talked to Colin all week. Say hello to Joy. So I'm doing that, Joy, from Jan and myself. But no, tomorrow we're going to be over at Jimmy's.
Hi, Coach.
We'll be over we'll be in the Keys for a couple of days, having a few Heinekens, probably get on the boat, tell some lies. We're going to look forward to having some fun.
I love talking to Coach Dave Wannstedt. Good seeing you, Coach.
See you guys.
He is so connected in the National Football League. He knows everybody. By the way, he's the last remaining guy that likes Trubisky. He's been sitting with me on that set on NFL Kickoff for years saying, I could have won a lot of games with Trubisky. And it's funny because you look at Mitch Trubisky's record the last 3 years with Nagy, it's like 25-13. He's won a bunch of games. He just thinks he's more, they don't know how to use him. He said, you can win that way in the NFL. He said, Lamar doesn't throw a great ball. He's winning. You can win with Mitch Trubisky.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you'd like.
Hey Zareen, what's a TV moment that you're still not over?
I'm still not over the musical episode on Grey's Anatomy.
Me too. I'm cringing just thinking about it. And there are so many of these pop culture moments that we had no choice but to make a podcast about it. Hi, I'm Becky Kirsch.
And I'm Zareen Sneaky. We've been working at Pop Sugar for the better part of a decade, covering events, interviewing celebrities, and spending too much time analyzing the latest in entertainment.
Listen to Not Over It on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sunday on Fox, the NASCAR Cup Series returns to Daytona as Chase Elliott looks to defend his win at the 14-turn road course. All the action starts Sunday at 3 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
Your most life-changing sleep is about what's underneath Casper mattress. Only at Casper 86 supportive gel pods. You know, it's funny. I'm sitting here thinking, about this. The Houston Texans could get a bunch of draft picks for Deshaun Watson. And I think the time is hot. He's off a great season. You don't want to trade him, but you could get a ton for it. But the Texans would screw it up anyway because they don't know what they're doing. It's a prime example with the New York Jets, a dysfunctional franchise. And I like Joe Douglas, the new GM, but Robert Saleh is an unproven head coach. So they're going to bail on Sam Darnold. Will the Colts like Sam Darnold? Kyle Shanahan likes Sam Darnold. Smart people in the league like Sam Darnold. And the Colts will probably land him, if not Wentz, or the Niners will. Somebody that's good is going to get Sam Darnold because good people like him. You're reading all the stories. And the Jets are going to bail on him, and they're going to bring in a rookie quarterback from the Mountain West Conference in a division with Bill Belichick, best defensive coach in football history, Sean McDermott, great defensive coach for Buffalo, and Brian Flores, the makings of an amazing defensive coach. Translation, Kyle Wilson's going to go 0-6 in division year 1 and year 2. Or you could get that second pick if you're the Jets, and you could get 3 first-rounders for a couple seconds, potentially. And you've already got, because of the Jamal Adams trade, multiple firsts. And you could stick with Sam Darnold, who's been in the league, who now understands the National Football League, and support him with 7, 8, 9 first and second round picks the next 2 years. So I look at the Jets and I think they're gonna eventually screw it up because they're the Jets. And they're gonna, if you go look at what the Jets are doing, I understand them moving off Sam Darnold. He hasn't won, and GMs and coaches like their own quarterback, so they're going to move off Sam Darnold. But it's going to be a revolving door of losses because they're going to bring in a rookie quarterback, and he's going to get his butt handed to him by Belichick, Brian Flores, and Sean McDermott. Defensive coaches that are elite in this league eat rookies for lunch for 2 years. They eat them for lunch, and Kyle Wilson's going to have to come in and start. Zach Wilson. And you don't even know if Robert Saleh can coach. You have no idea. So he's going into now the best coached division in the NFL in terms of defense. McDermott, Flores, and Belichick with a rookie quarterback. Or you can stay with Darnold and get multiple first-rounders, your own from the Jamal Adams trade, and from that, moving your number 2 pick. And just give him an all-star. You could solve every issue by the second round this year. You really could. If you trade that pick and get a first and a second, you'd have 3 firsts, you'd have multiple seconds, you'd have, I think they have 3 thirds. You'd solve all your problems by the 3rd round. You wouldn't even have to hit on all your picks. You could hit on about 4 of them. Get a corner, get a pass rusher, get a wide receiver, and 1 more offensive lineman. 4 of your 6 picks you're solved, and you have cap money, give Sam some players. But I mean, you give these teams all these picks, and you, like Houston, you're going to get a boatload of picks, they'll screw it up. So if the Jets move off Darnold and get, oh my God, you got this quarterback, and you still got to be able to make it work. And the idea that I'm going to have a rookie quarterback in New York in that division against those coaches, Buffalo's a great football team. Belichick somehow last year won 7 games, and Miami's really close to being an excellent team. They're in the rebuilding process. They're 1 draft away. And you're going to bring in a kid from the Mountain West Conference. Good luck with that. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News. Sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Well, Tom Brady made a huge shift in his career last season, joining a new team in a new city, and his trainer, Alex Guerrero, explained some of the ways that Brady adjusted his workout and health regimen to fit in his new life. He said this was an unprecedented year, not to mention a new city. This year we included pool workouts and, of course, even a park eviction. He worked on a number of things to prevent overload to his elbows and shoulders and maintaining mobility and strength to his hips and spine. But the constant through it all was the hard work and determination that propelled Tom personally. Guerrero also said that Brady's become more flexible with his diet and found more balance with his food. He said we believe in variety. If he wants pizza, he'll eat it. He just wants to be a really good slice, and he doesn't do that often. We talk about Tom Brady's CP12 method and everything that he puts to his body, and similar to LeBron, spending a lot of money investing in his body in the offseason and having a trainer and traveling with his trainer and the nutrition, and we kind of gloss over that. But when you really listen to what he's saying and think about how much extra work that is, there's a reason why LeBron and Tom Brady have the bodies they do. Now, obviously, some of it is us, but it's not all of us. It's hard for us as regular people who are like, I want to get in shape. I'm going to eat healthy just during the week. And then, you walk past the cupboard and then there's some chips in there and you just maybe have a few. It takes a lot of discipline to daily give up things that make you happy in order to achieve an ultimate goal. It's a lot of extra work.
Yeah, I think I'm reasonably disciplined. But if you give me chicken nachos at any point in the day, I'm gonna worry about the repercussions later. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't care about the repercussions.
Right. And Tom Brady doesn't do that. It's really, we don't give him enough credit. Ron too, and just how much effort they put into the nutrition training. The Bucs dropped their 4th game in a row last week, 24-1-13 loss to the Packers. Giannis had 10 rebounds, 8 assists, but his last week came with 6 minutes left in the game. However, he doesn't think it's time to worry about the team just yet. He said, I kind of have a feeling everybody is in panic, which should not be the case. You've got to look at the bright side of it. You still have another opportunity on Thursday, so getting better, watch the film, improve, keep everybody in good place. It's not the end of the world right now. This is kind of my issue with the Bucs last season. Not that Giannis didn't have MVP, but it just Bucs are kind of getting into the space where I've heard enough about how great you guys are, you know, you have all these exciting news. I need to see some results. They're 0-9 and trailing after the worst record in the NBA this season. They were outscored 12-4 in the final 5 minutes of the Raptors. And if you just look at the last 3 seasons, the way that the Bucks have finished it, 2018 lost the first round to the Celtics in 7. 2019 lost the Eastern Conference Finals to the Raptors in 6. And last year they lost in 5 to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Where are the results?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fair question. I'm going to ask Antoine Walker that in 10 minutes. Totally fair question.
So Draymond Green spoke about this week about the double standard between how players are treated when they ask for a trade and how teams treat them while they're looking for a trade. And LeBron joined the conversation last night, and he fully agrees with what Draymond said.
It's the narrative of what the league has always been, and you know, from a team's perspective, they've controlled the narrative. They've controlled the narrative of how players should be, how they should act, how they should treat their organization. We just want people to understand that it's 2 sides of the coin. It's not just one-sided.
I totally understand where Draymond and LeBron are coming from. I'm obviously a very pro-player person. I've seen how these trades work and people getting cut and contracts, and that's why I don't believe in loyalty to organizations. But there's a structure to the sport. There's a structure to the business, and it's agreed upon between players and organizations. It's called the CBA. If you don't want trades anymore, which, let's be honest, don't just benefit organizations. James Harden wanted out to leave the Rockets, so he got a trade to the Nets. We've seen this happen many times where it benefits the players. I don't actually think that fans and media are very lenient with organizations when they do a bad job. Deshaun Watson is in a terrible situation. Nobody's saying Deshaun Watson needs to be refilled to Houston. No one's mad at Deshaun Watson. There's plenty of organizations like the Giants, the way that they continue to do this. Fans aren't actually taking care of it. I think that what Draymond is trying to explain is there's a real personal side to it. Like Blake Griffin sitting, Andre Drummond sitting. It affects you personally to not be able to go out there and play. How can a organization do crazy players and keep them healthy? Not for trade value. There is a personal side of it. You have kids, the other people will be very stressful, and fans get a
yeah. Good stuff, Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line
Yeah,
News.
by the way, Giannis, I remember watching a 60 Minutes piece about 3 years ago on how great Giannis was. He was the next LeBron, and I just rolled my eyes. He can't shoot. He can handle the ball okay, but he doesn't control the tempo of a game. And I've always said this, most bigs, I don't want touching the ball with 4 minutes left because they can't shoot free throws. Giannis is decent at that. But the idea that Giannis is going to take over this league is laughable. He doesn't sell shoes. He's not as marketable. He doesn't control games. You don't want him. If he's behind late, he's useless. Antoine Walker, who played 12 years in this league and was also a champion and also a 3-time All-Star, his thoughts on Giannis. It's not that I don't like him. I just think we elevated him to a space he wasn't close to being ready for. That's next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Got any plans this afternoon? Check out People Every Day, a new podcast from iHeartRadio and People. We'll break down the day's most talked about stories, bring you exclusive interviews.
We had a free throw shooting contest, and Amal made 17 free throws straight and beat us all.
And introduce you to real people who are making a difference in their communities. Listen and subscribe to People Every Day on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Well, Antoine Walker won a title with the Heat, played 8 years in Boston, 12 years overall. He was a great scorer, an NBA champ, and a first-round pick and a 3-time All-Star, and he lives in one of my favorite cities in America, Chicago. He is now joining us live. All right, we got a couple of things to bat around here. Let's start with this. I said this earlier today in my opening rant. There are talented players, and then there are guys that are talented and valuable. Like Chris Paul is valuable. He leaves, teams get worse. He arrives, everybody gets better. I know nobody likes him, and he's difficult, but he's really valuable. Then there's guys like Giannis. I know he's talented, but Antoine, I'm over it. He's a bad late game player. They can't come from behind. Like, where do you land right now on Giannis in Milwaukee?
Giannis is a guy, and I agree with you to a certain degree, is that it's tough to coach him because he's a two-time MVP, and I don't want to take anything away from that. He's earned that award, and he's done a great job over the last 4 or 5 years of developing his game. But if he wants to be a champion, he has to get a post-up game. He has to get a mid-range game. I'm not necessarily concerned with the three-point shooting. Maybe lessen your value and maybe take only a couple a game. And then the free throw shooting. I mean, he's shooting 64% right now. So that means that he cannot be trusted late in games. I think the Miami Heat put the blueprint out on him, how you're going to be able to guard him. And now teams are taking that in full advantage. If he's not in the open floor, it's very hard for Giannis to score. And he has to figure that out. So everybody's like, oh, the Bucks, he needs to lead the Bucks. He needs to go other places. He needs to do this and do that. They need to add this piece. Unfortunately, their problem was with their own personal superstar. He has to get better. His offensive skill level has to get up if he wants to compete with the Kevin Durant's, with the LeBron James of the world, if he wants to be in the championship contention. If not, they will continue to get bounced in the playoffs because of his lack of offensive performance. He has to get better. And I know it's tough because he's a two-time MVP, and what coach is going to step in and tell him that he has to get better?
Yeah, no, your point, though, LeBron is always tinkering with his game to get better. It looks like Giannis is working on the stuff he wants to work on, but not elevating his game. Now, speaking of Brooklyn, listen, we all know it's a tremendous offensive team. I still don't think you can play. I think KD and James Harden could win a title if they were better defensively on the other spaces. What do you do with three great offensive players? I mean, I watch them when they play. They're terrible defensively, Antoine.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because they're so talented offensively. This is the first time in NBA history that we're seeing three guys that do not really need each other offensively. All three of these guys can score the basketball, can do amazing things on the offensive end. But when you want to win a championship, Colin, you gotta make sacrifices. When I played for the Miami Heat, I was in the prime of my career. When I came in, Pat Riley told me I need to make a sacrifice. I couldn't be a 20-10 guy no more. I had to do other things on the floor. The team was built around Shaq and D. Wade. These guys, somebody is going to have to make a commitment on the defensive end. I think Kevin Durant is very capable of doing that. We've seen him be a very good two-way player. James Harden has the body and the strength to be a good player. We see him make some defensive plays from time to time. But that's the question mark is Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's never made a commitment to the defensive end, and he hurts you because the point guard is the toughest position in the NBA. Every night you're going against tough point guards. So I don't know if they have that. And they don't have to necessarily role players besides DeAndre Jordan, who's kind of had a defensive, mentality on that team. So they're going to struggle at times. But I don't know if teams can get to 130. I don't know how many NBA teams in a 7-game series can get to 130. And then you got moments like last night where any one of those guys can get you 40. And that's very difficult to beat.
Yeah. It's interesting. This past week, I was home and I was watching Boston lose to Washington, and the internet exploded and people were banging on Brad Stevens. And my takeaway was watching that game. Have we overvalued the Celtics' talent? Now, I like Jason Tatum. I think he's really a spectacular talent. But I look at the rest of that team and I think it's a lot of guys. And I think to myself, nothing against Danny Ainge, but I don't see a lot of difference-maker players. Are the Celtics just a good team because they just have mostly good players?
They are a good team. I don't believe they're a championship team, especially now in the Eastern Conference where you got James Harden that's added to the Brooklyn Nets, and that's going to be very difficult for the next couple of years to get past them. But you got to start from the top. I think Kemba Walker's not the same guy. Because of injury. I think they're downplaying his knee. He hasn't really recovered. You saw that in the bubble when he tried to come back. And even this season, he's not the same guy. I think it's something really wrong with his knee. I do like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum long-term to be your two wings. They seem like they work very well together. Where they dropped the ball a little bit is that they didn't get nothing for Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
I think if Gordon was going to go somewhere, you should have been able to get some type of big. I think you got a Dwight Howard that was out there. So you had to get a serviceable big that's going to be defensive-minded for them. Now, granted, Marcus Smart is not playing right now, probably the heart and soul of this team. The one guy who can, guard 4 positions, and He's the leader vocally on this team. So when he comes back, they'll be a little bit better. But when you talk about, I don't think they're better than Philly. I don't think they're better than the Milwaukee Bucks, even with the way Giannis is playing. And I know they're not better than Brooklyn. So they're still a ways away from getting over that. And be honest with you, Kyle, I don't know if Brad Stevens is the coach. I mean, he's honestly, he's done a terrific job. He's won a ton of games, but he hasn't get over that hump either. Yeah. So you got to put that out there too. Sometimes, we blame the player. Sometimes you got to look at the total situation there. So they're gonna continue to win games because they got 2 all-star wings. But what are you talking about? Getting to the championship level? I don't think they're there yet.
I only got 2 minutes left, Antoine, but I want to ask you this. Anthony Davis, forget the injury, was not having a very good year for him offensively, and we were expecting more. Is it fair to say that he's a talented guy, but he's never a 1? He's just the best 2 in NBA history. He doesn't have a 1 mentality. This was going to be the year, and he's played poorly offensively. Maybe that's just who he is.
No, I think the 71 days, the shortened season, he didn't understand it. Probably partied a little bit too long. Didn't come in probably the best shape possible. When we first saw him go to the Lakers, he was spending a lot of time with LeBron. You saw a lot of videos, a lot of Instagrams of them being in the weight room together. And I'm not saying I don't have insight to say that they're not doing that. But I felt like that just watching him, that he was not the same guy that we saw finish off in the bubble last year and play great in the playoffs. And to be great and to be one of the elite players in this league, every year you got to add a little something. You got to continue to get better. That's why the Kevin Durant's, the Steph Curry's, the LeBron James, the James Harden, those guys do it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years at a time because they continue to add things to the game. And right now we're not seeing that. But also you got to remember this too about Anthony Davis. He's always been injury prone. Always. And I think that's the reason why he signed a 5-year deal, because he knows he gets hurt a lot. Yeah. And he doesn't want to put a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal on his body. So his pain tolerance is probably not very high. So LeBron James done a good job last year of keeping him focused on playing and not missing a lot of games, but they're going to miss him. And then you're going to have to wait till he gets back into basketball shape to make a real run. So him being out really hurts the Lakers as far as longer term, because you got to get him right if LeBron wants to win another title.
Yeah, great stuff today, Antoine. 12 years in the NBA, a 3-time All-Star. I'm not sure if I've had you on before, but you make a lot of really interesting points. And a Chicago guy living in the city.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully they'll, I think they've opened up restaurants a little bit in Chicago. Once this cold spell is gone, you can go out and go to Chicago, cut and steak 48 and live it up a little.
I know. You come to Chicago, look me up now. Look me up. I'm right here.
I will. I promise I will. Great talking to you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me on the show.
You bet. If you've never been to Chicago, what a great American city. Ryan, have you been there? Oh, my God, it's good.
I have been for the NFL draft a few years ago. Great city.
Oh, it's a great city. Great food city. Great people city. All the cool Midwestern people they all go to Chicago. Great party city. Now, winters are a little rough. You want to stay away? Yeah, a little. Christmas to about March, there are other cities. Cremo Barber Grade products designed to soothe and relieve that beard itch. I use it every morning. They tame, moisturize, and style your beard with creams, oils, and softness. Available at Amazon and CremoCompany.com. It's spelled CREMO. I love their stuff. CremoCompany.com. Today's Discover Card Key matchup. They're playing tonight. I think I may just watch that. Discover matches all the cash back you've earned into your first year, cramming a full year's worth of cash back into one of those cash-shaped birthday cards. Cashback match only at Discover. Discover something brighter. Okay, we got big NFL news happening. Joy will get to it in a second. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, let's start with Zion Williamson, who led the Pelicans with 31 points and made 13 of his 16 shots in their 144-113 win over the Grizzlies last night. And he also saved his place in history books in the process. He's the only player in league history to average at least 23 points with a 60% or better field goal percentage through his first 50 games in the NBA.
Now that's interesting.
Making an impact.
I would have thought Wilt or Kareem. That's interesting. I am shocked he's the only guy to do that.
Well, he doesn't have any problem getting to the basket, obviously, and he's clearly worked on his game. Now, he still has, obviously, a lot of developing to do, but I like watching this game last night because it really feels like the future, the young stars of the NBA, and Ja Morant and Zion Williamson. Now, the Pelicans are 12 and 15. Obviously, they need some more pieces and a little bit more time, but he did have 31, 7 and 6. Like, he's been very consistent and, you know, is playing more minutes, and, you know, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Zion. He's just so fun to watch. He's just a constant highlight reel.
Yeah, he's conflict at the rim guy, and in an NBA that's increasingly a jump shooting league, he is one of the few guys. There's a little Blake Griffin where he likes contact at the rim. He's going to finish at the 10, and I find that part of the NBA missing. I think I like when we have bigs who go right at the rim, and he does it with such violence. I think he's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, when you have that body, you might as well, right?
Right.
So, Ndamukong Suh finally added a Super Bowl win to his list of career accomplishments, and he's hoping to get the chance to run it back again next season with the Bucs. He said, "My goal is to come back and have an opportunity to go win another championship." Coach Bruce Arians said, "I'm not going anywhere," and he's usually a man of his word, so I look forward to the opportunity to continue to play, especially for Tampa, and I honestly believe I have a lot of elite, great talent left in me, and I'm not ready to hang them up yet. He is a free agent, and this is the one thing about the Bucs running it back that I want to pay attention to, because obviously we know how hard it is to repeat a championship. Everyone had already put it in the books that the Chiefs were going to repeat as champions and were incredible all season long. Nobody expected the Super Bowl to go the way it did. It's very hard to repeat as champions. There's a lot of Bucs free agents, not only Ndamukong Suh, but Chris Godwin, Shaq Barrett, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Levante David, and Leonard Fournette are all free agents this offseason.
Yeah, listen, I mean, he's always been a little bit of his own guy. Coaches have complained through the years to me that he's kind of doing his own thing. But I will say this Tampa team, it really is. It reminds me of the Miami Heat, where you look around and you got your leader, and you're really good. And if I'm Ndamukong Suh, and I can live in Tampa where I've lived before, no state tax, on a great team, it's not built around me. I'm not going to get double-teamed, Joy. You'll never get double-teamed anymore with Shaq Barrett and JPP. So it's a really nice space where I get one-on-one blocking. I'm not called upon to be dominant every game. I'm part of a great collective. And it's kind of a fun team. It's got a Miami Heat feel to it, where you got a Ray Allen here and a Battier and a Mike Milner and a Udonis Haslem. And they're all kind of like quirky, kind of fun guys in their own right, and they all sort of work, and they all get at this point. They've made their money. They're all in the, let's just win games and have fun. And I think Ndamukong finally found a home which fits for him.
So here's the big news that you were teasing at the top. Ben Roethlisberger has been clear that he wants to return to the Steelers for the 2021 season, and he said he's willing to restructure his contract to make that happen. But GM Kevin Colbert wouldn't fully commit to bringing Big Ben back. He said, "As we sit here today, Ben is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He reiterated to us that he wants to continue to play. We told him we have to look at this current situation."
Wow.
So he's only under contract through the 2021 season. He has a $41.25 million cap hit in 2021. That's the highest of any quarterback. I think it's time to consider moving on from Ben Roethlisberger and figuring out what the future of the Steelers is. Now, he said he's willing to leave some money on the table. When you have the cap hit like that, I don't know how you expect to have anybody around you. But that is not a huge commitment by the GM there.
Oh, it's not a commitment at all. Read this again. Put that quote up for our audience. He reiterated...
As we sit here today...
Yeah.
Ben is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah. He reiterated to us that he wants to continue to play. We told him we have to look at this current situation.
Yeah, that's basically saying they would prefer to move off him. Listen, Ben is old, expensive, feels a little brittle, and frankly, I think it's time. I don't know what everybody's afraid of. It's not like he's delivering W's in the playoffs. I mean, I get not wanting to let go of Favre at the end, because you were like, okay, Brett gets us to the playoffs. You always felt like you were in a Super Bowl window. Pittsburgh's not a Super Bowl team right now. They can't run the ball. Ben makes too many mistakes. He struggles to get along with other star players on offense. You ever notice with Pittsburgh, It's great when they have stars on defense, but when you put other stars on offense, Ben struggles with them. So it's like I don't know what's like. I would get fear in Green Bay moving off Aaron Rodgers because you always feel like you're in that window. Pittsburgh's not a Super Bowl team to me. I don't think they're as good as Baltimore. Well, at the end of the year, they're not as good as Cleveland, and I don't think. And I don't know. I don't get this loyalty thing with Ben. He has disappointed you in big spots for a decade. In fact, look it up. When's the last big, true Steeler playoff win? You're from there. I can't even think of one. So, yeah, enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
You know, here's the other thing. Like all these teams, you have to make decisions on players. And we're seeing it all over the NFL. And when you make a decision on an employee, it could be a talk show host, it could be a quarterback, it could be a lawyer in your law firm. And you get to the end of the road, and you got to pay them a lot of money. You have to ask yourself, have they truly been committed to us? Have they given everything they could? That's why I think for New England, it was going to be hard for them to move off Brady. Brady eventually moved off New England because Tom had been so committed. Robert Kraft and Belichick knew they'd never find a quarterback that committed. I mean, you can say what you want about Brady. There's never been a quarterback that won't drink a beer in Boston during the season. And I think when you look at Ben, he's never truly been committed in the offseason. That's why he's fallen apart physically. So if I'm sitting there running the organization, we've committed to him, we've gotten him players. He hasn't committed like a Breeze physically. He doesn't commit like a Russell Wilson physically. I think he's just a very limited quarterback. I've heard this for years. He has a very simplistic audible system. They've had to cater to Ben. He doesn't get along with this coach, they fire the coach. He doesn't get along with this running back, they get rid of the running back. He can't run a more sophisticated audible system, they simplify it for Ben. It's always been bending over backwards for Ben, which would be fine if I felt I was getting the ultimate payoff. When is Pittsburgh winning big playoff games? He's aged poorly because he's never been as committed as other peers in his generation. He just hasn't been. He's not as committed as Brady. He's not as committed as Breeze. I don't think he's ever been as committed as Russell Wilson early in his career. I think Pittsburgh's done everything right. They've drafted well. They've developed well. I mean, good God, he whined about a quarterback getting drafted in the 4th round years ago. I mean, they have just bent over backwards to take care of him, and he's not paying them off for that. Making the playoffs is not a payoff for an organization with the standards of Pittsburgh. That's big for Cincinnati. That's not big for Pittsburgh. So they've gone out of their way to get rid of coaches, get rid of receivers, get rid of players, get rid of anybody that's in Ben's way. What is he giving them besides raw natural talent? Headaches. The other thing I think about is that we all know there's going to be 4 or 5 quarterbacks drafted. There's about 4 or 5 quarterbacks on the market right now. So let's talk about them. Carson Wentz is probably the most talented. Marcus Mariota was a backup, but he's got a lower ceiling, but he can play. Jimmy Garoppolo, various reports will be out there. Mitch Trubisky will be out there. And Sam Darnold. This news for me is really good for Sam Darnold. Because, earlier today I said there's 9 teams, and I wasn't even counting Minnesota, Atlanta, San Francisco. I said there's 9 teams that need a quarterback. This sounds like 10. That's a third of the league. So here's the teams today. So here are the teams that need a quarterback. Jags, Jets. Jets don't need it, but they're going to draft one. Jags, Jets, Panthers, Broncos, Patriots, Washington, Bears, Colts, Saints, Steelers. So there you go. That's 10. Sam Darnold, Washington has shown interest. They've got a really good defense and a really smart veteran coach. The Colts have reportedly shown interest. Great O-line, good coach, great GM. San Francisco, I know, is interested in Darnold. And now I think Pittsburgh would make a run at him. I think he's sort of a tough alpha. He's Bradshaw, Big Ben, Darnold, they're kind of guys. They're kind of alphas. I think he plays into that. And here's the thing with Darnold. Wentz is expensive. Darnold's not. Mariota's got a pretty low throwing ceiling. Darnold does not. Jimmy G has injuries. Darnold does not. This is really good for Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's going to end up massively upgrading to a really good team. Either the Colts, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Washington. None of those would be bad fits. 2 defensive coaches, 2 offensive coaches. But when I hear this news, my takeaway is Sam's going to end up somewhere. He's only 23 years old. The NFL now is much more about giving quarterbacks second chances. The reasons I stated earlier, it's become much more of a transactional league, even for quarterbacks. And secondly, GMs and coaches they're just less patient. They're going to move, even if they'll move off you, even if the league won't, teams will just move off you now. You didn't used to do that. It used to be there was one new quarterback that came into the league every year out of college, maybe 1.5. Now you're getting to the point where it's 4 and 5 guys that can play. So this year we got Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, and Mac Jones. Mac Jones to me is too much of a pocket guy, but he'll go somewhere. If he gets a good offensive line, Mac Jones could win some games. So the Steelers general manager does not commit to Big Ben. If you're a Steeler fan, just ask yourself this, if this upsets you. What are you getting for Big Ben now? Well, what's he giving you? Getting to the playoffs doesn't mean anything for Pittsburgh. That's like saying for the Dodgers or the Yankees, I made the playoffs. For the Packers, I made the playoffs. You think that's the standard in Green Bay, is making the playoffs? Pittsburgh's arguably outside of Dallas the biggest brand in this league. Don't become Dallas. Don't pay players more than don't pay good players great money. Right now, Ben is a good player. You're paying him great money. Salary cap league, fastest way to kill a culture. Pay good players great money. By the way, speaking of quarterbacks, Dave Wannstedt was very interesting, former Bears coach. So the story on Carson Wentz is Wentz would prefer the Colts over the Bears. Now, the Bears have a very good defense. Allen Robinson's a great receiver. They have a very innovative offensive coach. Now, they are a little brother to Green Bay in their division, but Dave Wannstedt made an interesting point, and he does radio shows. He used to be the Bears coach all over Chicago, about Carson Wentz reportedly not wanting to be a Bear.
A problem with Carson Wentz that I'm told, talking to a lot of people, is his leadership ability. That he lost the team. He lost the offense. There's a presence and a communication with the quarterback in a huddle when the game's on the line that's invaluable. And I'm not hearing that about Carson Wentz. But Chicago's a tough-minded, proud city. You want to be part of it? Come on, roll your sleeves up and get ready for it. But if you don't, then go somewhere else. And I think that's the approach. I talked to someone this morning. That's pretty much where the Bears are at. We made our offer, and the Bears are exploring other quarterbacks.
Yeah, Chicago, as Dave said, Chicago is happy winning 10-7. They don't need to be in shootouts. So updates on Ben Roethlisberger. It doesn't appear the Steelers are making any commitment to him. I think it's time to move off. I thought it about a year ago. That's why when Pittsburgh got 11-0 this year, I didn't take them seriously. They couldn't run the football. Ben couldn't throw it over the top. Everybody in Pittsburgh was freaking out. I'm like, you're the worst 11-0 team I've ever seen in my life. And at the end of the year, you're a bad football team.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I've got one word for you. Tom Cruise. On this new weekly podcast, Meeting Tom Cruise, we're going to talk about Tom Cruise. We're going to talk to people who have met Tom Cruise. Why? Because Tom Cruise is the greatest movie star of all time.
Is he, though? Shut your mouth.
Everyone who has met him has an amazing story to tell.
And that's where I met
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
When I hear the bathroom door open, and it's Tom Cruise.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeff Meacham. You might know me as Josh Openhole from TV's Blackish, and I'm here with the Goose to my Maverick.
Hey, I'm Joel Johnston. You might know me as Archie on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And I'm Alec Lev, and you might...
No one knows you from anything. Listen, we love Tom Cruise. We are inspired by Tom Cruise.
But while we live and work in Hollywood, we've never actually met Tom Cruise.
So we're going to talk to some people who have, and maybe one of them will lead us to the man himself, so we can have our own stories of meeting Tom Cruise.
Does it really have to just be about Tom Cruise?
Shut up! Why are you here?
Listen to Meeting Tom Cruise on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts,
or wherever
wherever you get your podcasts.
At Jersey Mike's, app is short for appetizing. Save 25% on your order with the code JMikes25. JMikes25. Jersey Mike's, be a sub above. Quincy Avery is the president at Quarterback Takeover. It is an elite camp in an emerging industry on elevating quarterbacks. He is Deshaun Watson's personal coach, Jalen Hurts' personal coach. His dad was a coach in Tampa under Tony Dungy, and Quincy Avery said, I don't want to do the coaching, but I like mentoring and teaching. He also has Trey Lance, the hot prospect from North Dakota State. I didn't know Quincy Avery until 5 minutes ago, but I already love his personality, and he joins me now live. All right, so I'm gonna list some quarterbacks, Quincy, and you just tell me what you think. First of all, let's do the Philadelphia thing. Wentz is out. Jalen Hurts is the guy. His completion percentage numbers weren't great. He's a little smaller than I'd like, but he's mobile and he's active, and I love his story. Is he going to succeed in Philadelphia? What does he need to work?
I think Jalen needs to continue to improve on the little things in terms of just quarterback development, being more consistent from the pocket. But all the things that you mentioned that he's great at, that's going to allow him to be really successful and go through these like growing pains that you go through as a young quarterback in the National Football League.
Trent Dilfer helped discover you, and he's a friend of ours both. And I know he gave you a ton of trust and helped you start this thing off. We have new quarterbacks in the NFL today, all different shapes, sizes, and styles. I want to talk about a couple of young ones. Trey Lance, all I've seen is YouTube video on him. Hasn't played this year but a game. Doesn't play the greatest competition. What do you see? You're coaching him. What is he? What's his ceiling?
Trey Lance can be an all-pro quarterback for a number of years. He's so physically gifted. Like that throw right there to sail to the right, he drives it, like he manipulates the pocket. He's an elite runner. And people talk about the level of competition he played against. Well, let's also talk about the guys that he has on his team. Those guys are making great catches, like outside of their radius, doing all the things that happen when you're at a school like Alabama and your guys are getting wide open. He doesn't have that advantage. He had to do everything the right way. And then mentally, he's so far ahead of any quarterback that I've dealt with at this stage of their career. He's asked to do so much. Rarely does their offensive staff call a complete play. They'll call half of the concept and ask Trey to do so much more. I think that when he goes into an NFL program, he's going to be somebody who can step up immediately and be the guy in the locker room. And then all the other things that make quarterbacks great, in terms of the leadership, those dynamic capabilities, he's going to be amazing at.
I'll tell you what, just on the video I'm watching here, he is athletically, he just doesn't look like other quarterbacks. Now, let's go to Zach Wilson from BYU. I saw him 2 years ago. I flipped on the TV and watched him. Very lively arm, but he's very thin. Is he ready to play day one in the league?
I think that it's going to take a bit of time before he's ready to play in the National Football League. He's twitchy. Like you said, he's electric, strong arm. He does all those things well. But also in the games this year that he had the toughest competition, like Coastal Carolina, he wasn't great. And then if you look back at the tape from the year before, he didn't have like a great showing. He did a lot of things really well when his team was much better than the opponent they were facing. So I'm really interested to see how does it work when the level of talent that he has on the field is equal to the guys that he's going to be going against.
Justin Fields now is getting picked apart. That's what happens when you play your last game at college and you play a great team and lose. I just see an athletic kid with a big arm who made big plays against Clemson. What worries you about Justin Fields, and what do you like about him?
So, like, he has a dynamic arm. He has all the running capabilities of someone like Cam Newton or Josh Allen, right? He can add to your game, make you have to put an extra defender in the box because he can do all those things. And then his arm is strong enough to defeat you throwing the football. I think that this year when we saw him struggle a little bit, like the Northwestern game, the offense that they were in, they got a little too pass happy. And I think that's because Coach Day had so much trust in Justin and trying to figure it out. They were rushing 3, dropping 8. And that's tough to be successful then. But when you see throws like this with the back shoulder throw, all those different things, he's got a chance to go to an NFL locker room and be a starter really, really quickly.
Trevor Lawrence, we've all known he's good for years. Now it's become fashionable to say, well, these other guys are just as good. When you watch his tape, what he is, I still contend, he looks like as good a prospect I've seen since Andrew Luck. What's the tape say, Quincy?
So he did a lot of good things. Like when you cut on the tape, all of his traits say he's going to be the number one pick in the draft. Throws like that. He can throw into tight windows. He does a great job in terms of anticipating stuff, and that's what has allowed him to be so successful. He's an excellent runner, even for somebody who's 6'6", and he's a great person, and that's what's going to take him a long ways. But I think it's really hard when you go somewhere as that number one pick. It's going to be really difficult for him to be successful. So how is he going to respond when he gets to Jacksonville and they're getting beat up, and he's lost more games in year one than he's lost through his whole high school, whole college career combined? Like, I want to see how Trevor Lawrence is going to deal with adversity, but his talent, the skills that he has, that should take him a long way.
So it's interesting about young quarterbacks. Quincy Avery joining us, president at Quarterback Takeover, an elite quarterback training program. He's also Deshaun Watson's coach, and I'll get to Deshaun in a second. But quarterbacks now, because of camps like yours, are getting more snaps by 12, 13, and 14 years old than any of the previous generations have received. Here's what I worry about with all these quarterback camps, is that not that they're pampered, but the quarterbacks now are sort of grooved into college and grooved into the NFL. And I kind of like my quarterback to stumble. Aaron Rodgers went to junior college, and Brady had to sit in the bench in college, and Carson Wentz had to go to some college you never heard of. Do you worry at all that all these quarterback camps like your own that are elite, how do you avoid pampering a kid and setting him up for the harsh reality he's going to get his head beaten for years?
Yeah, I've been saying this. In 10 years, we're going to see the most talented quarterbacks that we've ever seen. But I think the play at the position is going to be a little bit worse. And that's because these guys are going to be so coddled and so pampered from their coaches. There's a lot of guys in the industry who do what I do, who are going to pamper you and try and make you feel good and make you in every situation is going to be perfect. And they don't deal with any adversity. And like you've seen quarterbacks for a very long time. If you can't handle the adversity, when it hits you in the face and respond on Sundays, you're not going to last a very long time. And I think that we're seeing someone like Carson Wentz. This is the first time he's being hit with real adversity.
Yeah.
And we're seeing how he's handling it.
Yeah. No, Avery, this is Quincy Avery joining us. Quincy, this is a point that I've heard about Carson Wentz behind the scenes. He was always the biggest, strongest athlete. There was never pushback. And then in Philadelphia, he got pushback. The media's angry, the fans are angry, and he don't like it. And that's a reality. Now, I want to talk about Deshaun Watson, also your client. Now, by the way, 140 of your kids at your camp have earned Division I or Division II offers. So what you're doing is working, and they're making money and having great careers. Now, Deshaun Watson's different. He is now an established NFL player. I generally think you should adhere to your contract. But in his case, I have argued he has a short shelf life. He's been the life preserver for a sinking ship for years. I get that he wants out. Where does he stand emotionally today, what he wants, and what do you think the future for Deshaun Watson is?
I think that the future, it's interesting. I think he's made it really clear in terms of what he wants to do and that he wants to be in a situation that's allowing him to be in a great culture and it's going to allow him to thrive on the football field and be successful. And I think that in large part you see the frustrations with him. And it's you've never heard him complain once. You've never heard him say anything about the protection he's got or the people around him or trades going on. He just goes in and he acts like a CEO every single day. He goes in and does the right thing. But I think that when you're a quarterback, you need to be put in a position where people can count on you to be a leader of an organization. I think that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. Finally, Big Ben's not your client. I think he's done. I thought he was done last year. I don't think it's arguable. I don't even think it's close. If your thoughts when you watch him play as a quarterback coach, what do you see with Ben?
I see someone who's thrived in the NFL, playing off schedule, doing things not because he necessarily knew exactly what the defense was doing, and could be just so disciplined and dialed in and getting the ball to the right guy on time, but he tries to extend plays. And I think as he continues to get older, the arm strength diminishes. It's just going to continue to be harder and harder for him to be successful. So I really don't know how much he has left, and it doesn't sound like the Steelers really believe like he has a ton left in the tank.
By the way, one more question. I'm a fan of Sam Darnold, but I acknowledge that he's reckless, and some of his injuries are his fault. Do you buy Darnold? Do you still think he's legitimately a quarterback in this league?
I think that Sam Darnold is one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks that we have in the NFL. So he has the talent. Is he going to do all the right stuff in terms of discipline, in terms of being smart with the ball? Because the number one factor in a quarterback's success is like, how do they take care of the ball and how do they take care of themselves? And if he can do those two things, I think he can extend his career quite a bit.
Wow, you like him too. Quincy Avery, president at Quarterback Takeover, an elite quarterback training program. I loved your story, sleeping on the air mattress for 3 years at UCLA until you got a chance. You said, I don't want to coach, but I want to be in kids' lives. And 140-year kids who you've trained with at Quarterback Takeover have earned scholarships and made millions of dollars. I just want to thank you, Quincy. I'd love to have you on again, and good luck to you.
Hal, I really appreciate you having me on. Look forward to it anytime.
You bet. Thank you, Quincy Avery. By the way, he likes Sam Darnold, too. You guys always push back on that. Colin, you're very pro Sam Darnold. I just had an expert on. What'd the expert say? He's one of the most physically gifted guys in the NFL. I've had enough of the back talk on Sam Darnold. From this point forward, he's good, and that's just the way it is. No more arguing. All right, I'm done for today. For Joy and everybody else, I want to thank Brock Hewer, Dave Wanstadt, Antoine Walker was great. Quincy Avery will get Bruce Arians tomorrow, live in Los Angeles. Speak for yourself around the corner. This is The Herd.